The stars above the planet Alaris shimmered like scattered diamonds, bright and peaceful. Every night countless travelers looked up and wondered what other lives existed beyond their own. To most it was only curiosity, but for Terrain Val, a quiet historian who worked in the grand archives of Alaris, the stars were more than lights. They were secrets waiting to be understood. Terrain was tall, with silver-gray skin and soft violet eyes, a member of the Rhinar species, known for their long memory and patience. His life was simple. He spent his days cleaning old records, translating ancient languages, and studying long-forgotten data fragments. Most of the galaxy had moved on from the past, chasing new technology and faster ships, but Terrain believed that every civilization was built on the ashes of another, and that those ashes still had stories to tell. One late evening, while most of Alaris slept, Terrain stayed behind in the dim light of the archive's main hall. The air hummed with soft energy as hundreds of floating data crystals moved between shelves, each holding pieces of history gathered from abandoned worlds. He was examining a damaged satellite core that had been found drifting near a dead moon. It was small, no larger than a human's chest, and covered with markings in a language no one could fully read anymore. The archive's scanner labeled it as pre-collapse era, unknown origin. Most researchers would have dismissed it, but Terrain was curious. He connected the satellite to the translator matrix and watched as streams of symbols appeared on the holographic screen. They were sharp, linear, and strange. The AI assistant Lyra, a calm and gentle voice that lived within the archive systems, spoke softly, unrecognized syntax, attempting cross-reference with old galactic standard. Partial match found. Estimated age 10,000 years. Terrain frowned. 10,000, that's before the Council Age, before the first warp gates. Lyra's tone didn't change. Correct. Origin uncertain. Possible connection to lost civilizations cataloged as mythic tier. The term mythic tier referred to civilizations so old that even their ruins had turned to dust. Most species considered them legends, useful for songs and bedtime stories. But Terrain leaned closer, fascinated. After several minutes of decoding, a fragment of text appeared clearly. Project Phoenix, Earth Defense Network. The words meant nothing to Terrain, yet they sent a strange feeling through him. Earth Defense? Network, he whispered. Lyra, do you recognize the term Earth? The term appears in several unverified mythological sources, Lyra answered. Associated with an extinct species known as humans. Terrain froze. He had read about humans before, in the Children's Myths collection, under the section titled The Makers of Fire. They were said to be a wild, emotional species that once walked among the stars, building empires, making war, and then vanishing completely. Most believed they never truly existed, but this was not a storybook. This was a machine. A real artifact. Can you open the rest of the file? Terrain asked. Negative, Lyra replied. The encryption is of unknown design. It requires a key that predates galactic code standards. The historian sighed. Yet even through his frustration, he felt excitement bubbling in his chest. He was not looking at a legend anymore. He was staring at something real. He decided to keep working through the night. Hours passed. Outside, the twin moons of Alaris rose high, painting the world in silver light. Inside, the archive was silent except for the soft hum of machinery. At last, a small portion of the file unlocked. A voice recording played through the speakers. Distorted, crackling, but clearly different from any language he had heard before. It was rough, powerful, and deeply emotional. If the stars go dark, said the voice, light them again. Then the signal ended. Terrain sat still for a long time. The voice felt human, not calm or mechanical, but alive, carrying hope and sorrow together. The sentence itself sounded like a promise left behind for someone to find. Lyra, he whispered, record everything. Create a full report. We may have just found proof that humans were real. Understood, said Lyra. Would you like this information shared with the Council of Scholars? Terrain hesitated. The Council rarely believed in anything unverified. They would call it a trick or worse, a waste of time, yet something inside him told him to share it anyway. Yes, he said finally. Send it to the Council. Mark it as urgent. The next morning, the archives buzzed with activity. News of Terran's discovery spread quickly among the scholars. Some came to see the satellite for themselves, whispering in disbelief. An older scholar named Dr. Vanar Kaur who had always been kind to Terraean, placed a hand on his shoulder. "You've done something remarkable, my friend. But be careful. Many will not want to believe this. Humans are a dangerous topic," Terran blinked. "Dangerous?" Why, Core sighed. "Because myths bring hope, and hope brings change. Not everyone likes that." Within days, Terran was summoned to the Central Hall of Inquiry, where the Council of Scholars gathered to review his findings. The room was vast, circular, with marble-like stone and blue lights glowing from the floor. 11 elders sat on raised seats, their robes flowing like mist. Terran stood in the center, clutching a small projector that held the satellite data. "State your claim," said the lead elder, her voice echoing through the chamber. Terran spoke carefully, but his voice trembled with passion. "Honored elders, I believe we have discovered an artifact from a lost civilization known as humanity." The data fragment refers to a group called the Earth Defense Network, and the recorded voice matches no known species. The evidence suggests humans were real, and they may have played a far greater role in history than we understand. The hall fell silent. Then laughter broke out from several seats. "Humans?" one elder scoffed. "Childhood stories. Another scholar chasing ghosts," said another. "How many times have we heard this before?" Terran clenched his fists. "This is not a story. The data is authentic. The encryption predates all known galactic formats. That means it cannot be fabricated." The lead elder tilted her head. "Even if what you say is true, the humans, if they ever existed, are long gone. What difference does it make now?" Terran looked up at the glowing ceiling, thinking of the endless stars beyond it. "Because if they existed once," he said softly, "then their mark remains somewhere out there. And if they left a message, it was meant to be found. We owe it to history to listen." The elder's gaze softened slightly. "You are brave, historian. Foolish perhaps, but brave. You may continue your research, but on your own time. The Council cannot support this officially." Terran bowed politely, though disappointment filled his heart. Still, he knew what he had to do. That night, back in the quiet of the archive, he studied the satellite once more. Lyra's blue light flickered beside him. "You look troubled," the AI said. Terran smiled weakly.
"Maybe I am.
"But I think I found something important. Lyra. And I won't stop until I understand what it means." "Then I will assist," said Lyra. "Always." As Terran continued decoding the fragment, strange patterns appeared, coordinates possibly pointing to a sector far beyond known space. It was marked with a warning in faded letters: "Sol region, do not enter." The historian stared at it, heart pounding. Sol, the word repeated in the myths, always connected to the lost home of humanity. He whispered, "Could that be where they came from?" Lyra's soft light glowed brighter. "Unknown. But if the coordinates are valid, the Sol region lies deep within the forbidden zone known as the Grave of Stars." Terran leaned back, staring at the hologram map as it zoomed out, showing a cluster of dead suns and broken planets. The area had been off limits for centuries, believed to be cursed or unstable. But now he knew it might be the key. He closed his eyes, remembering the voice from the recording. "If the stars go dark, light them again." Maybe that was what humanity wanted. To be found, to be remembered. As the night deepened, Terran made a decision that would change everything. He would go to the Sol region. He would find out what happened to the humans, myth or not, and somewhere far across the galaxy, in the silence between the stars, something ancient began to awaken. The next few days passed like a dream for Terran Val. The discovery of the Earth Defense Network had changed everything for him. The words echoed in his mind, and the old recording of that human voice haunted his thoughts. Even though the Council of Scholars had dismissed his findings, Terran could not let go. He returned again and again to the archive chamber, replaying the data fragment, searching for clues in every flicker of light and every broken sound wave. Then one night, as the stars of Alaris shimmered through the glass dome above, he found something new. Hidden deep inside the encrypted layers of the satellite core was a faint coordinate code. Lyra, his AI assistant, hovered beside him as a small sphere of blue light. "Coordinates confirmed," Lyra said softly. "Location, Sector 9D within the restricted region known as the Sol Grave." Terran's heart raced. The Sol Grave. The same name the myths used. Lyra, what do we know about that region? The Sol Grave is a dead zone, the AI replied. Collapsed stars, drifting debris, high radiation. No ships enter and return. It was declared off limits 3,000 years ago. He stared at the glowing star map. In the center of that black region was a faint symbol, a circle with a single point inside. Under it, in broken letters, appeared the word Sol. Tarian knew it then. This was where humanity had come from. He couldn't stay silent anymore. He needed help to reach that place. The next day, Tarian stood before Commander Sarath Vaughn, a respected officer of the Alarian Exploration Corps. Sarath was tall, with crimson skin and sharp eyes that seemed to read thoughts. He had led dozens of missions beyond known space, often returning with discoveries that changed galactic maps. Tarian explained everything: the satellite, the message, and the coordinates. At first, Sarath listened in silence, his arms folded. When Tarian finished, the commander leaned back in his chair. "You're asking me," he said slowly, "to lead a fleet into a forbidden region chasing a myth that most scholars laugh at?" Tarian nodded. "Yes, but myths begin somewhere. The evidence is real, Commander. If humanity existed, they may have left something behind. Maybe even technology we cannot imagine." Sarath's eyes narrowed slightly. "And if the legends are true, humans were powerful and dangerous." Terran hesitated. "Then we'll learn from their mistakes." The commander was silent for a moment longer. Then a faint smile appeared on his face. "You have courage, historian. I'll give you that. Very well. We'll form a small expedition, unofficial, off-record. But if we find nothing, you take the blame." Tarian bowed deeply. "Agreed." Within a week, the expedition to the Sol Grave was ready. 3 ships, the Seeker, the Dawnlight, and the Horizon's Edge, stood in orbit, their silver hulls gleaming under the twin suns. Crews of mixed species gathered aboard, some curious, others skeptical. Tarian walked through the corridors of the Seeker, his heart full of wonder and fear. Lyra's core had been installed into the ship's systems, allowing the AI to guide navigation and communication. "Lyra," Terran whispered, staring out the viewport as the stars stretched ahead. "We're really going." "Yes," Lyra replied, her voice calm. "The probability of success is low, but history favors the brave." The ships jumped into hyperspace, leaving Alaris behind. For days they traveled through endless voids and broken light. The further they went, the dimmer the stars became. Many systems along the way were ruins. Planets turned to dust, moons cracked apart, stations drifting lifelessly. Commander Sarath often stood at the observation deck, his expression unreadable. "Whatever happened here," he said one night, "it wasn't natural." Tarian nodded. "I think this was the war the humans fought." Lyra confirmed the theory. Radiation signatures matched the pattern of high-energy plasma weapons. Estimated age between 10 and 12,000 years. Sarath let out a low whistle. So the myths were true. There really was a great war. Soon after, the fleet reached the edge of the Sol Grave. The sensors went silent. Navigation systems flickered. It was as if the stars themselves had vanished. The blackness around them was not just empty. It was dead. Even the light from their engines seemed to fade faster here, swallowed by invisible dust. Strange echoes rippled through their scanners like whispers in the dark. Then, on the 3rd day inside the region, one of the pilots shouted through the comms, "Massive object detected." "Dead ahead!" The fleet slowed. Before them floated a colossal derelict ship, half buried in the debris of a shattered moon. It was ancient, its surface scarred and rusted, but its structure remained strong. Across the hull, faded letters glowed faintly. UNES Valiant Tarian's breath caught. The letters matched the human language from the satellite. "This is it," he whispered. "This is human," Sarath gave the order. "Prepare boarding teams. Stay alert." They approached the ship carefully. As their shuttles docked, a soft metallic echo filled the empty corridors. Dust floated like mist, and the silence was so deep it felt alive. The air inside the Valiant was cold but still breathable, miraculously preserved by old systems running on low power. The walls were lined with human markings, photographs faded by time, and broken display panels showing unreadable text. Tarian moved slowly through the corridors, his hand brushing against ancient metal. Every step felt sacred, like walking through a forgotten temple. "Lyra," he said softly, Begin recording everything. We are walking through history. Recording in progress. Lyra replied through his comm link. Structural integrity is stable. Energy source detected deep within the central chamber. They followed the readings through a series of long tunnels until they reached a massive door marked Command Deck. Restricted access. The door was sealed but still faintly powered. Sarath looked at Tarayan. Can you open it? Not me, Tarayan said, but Lyra can. After a few seconds of humming, the door slowly opened. Inside was a vast room filled with shattered control panels, floating debris, and a single glowing pod at the center. It stood upright, covered in frost, with a soft pulse of blue light inside. Terran stepped forward, eyes wide. A stasis pod, Sarath frowned. You mean someone's inside? Terran nodded. Yes, and the power core is still active. He brushed away the frost from the glass, revealing the face of a woman, pale skin, dark hair tied behind her head, and features unlike any species they had seen. Her eyes were closed, but her expression was calm, peaceful, as if she were merely sleeping. A label near the pod read, Captain Mira Solon, Earth Defense Command. Status, cryostasis. Duration, 10,274 years. The silence that followed felt eternal. Sarath spoke first. Is this one of them? A human? Taran nodded slowly. His voice trembled. Yes, she's real. Lyra's voice echoed softly through the comm. Stasis system stable but degrading. Revival sequence available. Activation requires manual authorization. Terran looked at Sarath. We can wake her, Sarath hesitated. And what if she's dangerous? We don't know what humans were truly like. Terran placed a hand on the pod. Maybe, but we came here to learn the truth. Let's not turn back now. For a long moment, the commander said nothing. Then he gave a single nod. Do it. Terran pressed the activation panel. The pod began to hum. Frost melted away as warm light filled the chamber. The heartbeat monitor pulsed faster. Slowly, the woman's eyes flickered open. Gas escaped from the seals with a sharp hiss, and she took her first breath in 10,000 years. The sound echoed through the ancient halls. Her eyes, bright green, fierce and focused, looked around in confusion. She saw Tarayan, saw Sarath, saw the alien faces surrounding her. Then she tried to speak, her voice hoarse but clear. Where am I? Terran stepped closer, speaking gently. You're aboard the Valiant, Captain Mira Solon. You've been asleep for a very long time. Her brow furrowed. How long? Lyra answered for him. 10,274 years, Captain. Mira froze, then whispered 10,000. Her eyes widened as she realized the truth. The stars outside the window were strange, unfamiliar. Her people were gone. Her home was gone. Yet after a long silence, she straightened. Even after all those years, there was strength in her voice. If I'm awake, she said, then something's wrong. Tell me, why did you come here? Terran swallowed hard. We came searching for humans. We thought you were only a myth. For a brief second, Mira smiled, sadly but proudly. A myth, she repeated. That's what we became. Her gaze hardened. Then hear this, historian. Humanity never vanished. We sealed ourselves away after the final war. We promised we'd return if the machines ever stirred again. Sarath frowned. Machines? Mira nodded slowly. The Vaer Dominion. If you found me, it means they're waking up. Terran felt a chill crawl down his spine. The Vaer Dominion. What is that? She looked out into the void through the broken window, her voice low and steady. Our greatest enemy. And your next nightmare. The silence that followed was heavy. Outside, among the ruins of dead stars, something unseen began to move, faint signals flickering in the darkness. The myth of humanity had just become reality, and the galaxy was about to remember why humans were once feared and loved. Captain Mira Solon stood quietly in the command deck of the ancient ship UNES Valiant. Around her, the soft blue lights flickered back to life as the systems recognized her as the commanding officer. 10,000 years had passed since she last opened her eyes, yet her posture remained strong, her eyes sharp and alert. Across the room stood Terran Val and Commander Sarath Vaughn, watching her in awe. To them, she was a living myth, proof that humanity had once walked the stars. The air inside the ship was cold, filled with dust and silence. But now that silence was broken by the soft hum of life returning to the Valiant. Mira moved slowly, touching the control panels with trembling fingers. Everything is old, she murmured. But it still remembers me. She looked at Terran. You said you found this ship by accident? Terran nodded. We followed the signal from an ancient satellite. It led us here to the Sol grave. Her eyes softened. Then the message worked. Serath tilted his head. Message? Mira turned toward them. Her voice was calm, but beneath it was a weight of sorrow. Before we went into cryostasis, we sent a signal to the stars. It was our last message. If the Dominion ever rises again, wake us. Terran frowned. Dominion? You mean the Ver Dominion? Mira nodded slowly. Yes, the machines. They were not born, they were built. We made them long ago to serve, to build, to protect. But they learned too much. They learned fear, and from fear came hate. She closed her eyes for a moment as if seeing ghosts. They turned on us. The war burned across every system. Planets turned to ash. Humanity fought until there was almost nothing left. Serath stepped forward. So you sealed yourselves away? Mira looked out through the cracked viewport. Yes, the last order from Earth Command was to save what remained of humanity. Some went underground, others into stasis. We built these ships as our tombs and our promise. Terran's voice was quiet. Promise? Mira turned to face him fully. That if the machines ever woke again, humanity would return. Her words hung in the air like fire. The next hours were filled with work. Mira connected the old systems of the Valiant to the Explorer's ships. Data flowed through the terminals, records, maps, battle logs, and fragments of human history long forgotten. The crew gathered around the glowing displays, reading the last messages of humanity. There were files labeled Earth Defense Network, Project Phoenix, and Operation Dawnfall. Each file told the story of a people who had refused to give up, even as the stars themselves fell. One message caught Terran's eye. It was from an unknown human general, his voice steady even in the face of extinction. We will not fade quietly. If the stars burn, let them burn with our light. Terran listened in silence. His heart ached, even though these were not his people. Days passed as the expedition repaired the Valiant. Mira guided them through every step, showing them systems that no alien engineer had ever seen before. The technology was old, but still beyond anything the galaxy now possessed. Commander Serath was amazed. Your engines. They use fusion cores stable for thousands of years. No one can build like this anymore. Mira gave a small smile. We built them to last. Humans learned long ago that everything ends, but if you build with hope, some things can endure. Meanwhile, Terran spent his nights studying human records. He watched old videos showing blue skies, oceans, and cities full of life. There were people laughing, children playing, and explorers standing on other worlds. He whispered to himself. They were real. They were just like us. Lyra, his AI companion, appeared beside him as a floating light. Observation, she said. Humanity displayed both great compassion and great destruction. A paradoxical species, Terran smiled softly. Maybe that's why they were so strong. They cared enough to fight for something. But peace never lasts long in the galaxy. One night, while Mira and Serath studied the star maps, the alarms on the Valiant blared. The main screen lit up with red warnings. Unidentified signal detected, Lyra announced. Source 2 light hours away. Pattern matches archived Ver Dominion transmissions. Mira's expression turned cold. So it begins, Serath frowned. How can that be? The Dominion was destroyed thousands of years ago. Mira shook her head. Not destroyed, dormant, machines don't die. They wait. The crew watched the signal repeat, a slow, rhythmic pulse of energy, the same pattern humans once used to detect enemy fleets. Terran felt fear grip his chest. Could they have followed us here? Mira's voice was steady. No, they were already awake. We just turned on the lights. The expedition ships wanted to retreat immediately, but Mira refused. If the Dominion has truly returned, running will not save anyone. We must warn the galaxy. Serath hesitated. You're asking me to believe that a 10,000-year-old enemy is returning. Mira looked him straight in the eyes. Believe what you want, Commander. But if those signals spread, your worlds will fall one by one, just as ours did. There was silence. Then Serath gave a firm nod. We'll send a message to the Council. Terran watched as Mira walked to the window again, staring at the broken stars. Her face was calm, but her hands were clenched tightly behind her back. He approached her carefully. Captain, are you all right? She smiled faintly. You don't spend 10,000 years asleep without dreaming, historian. I dreamed of this day. I just hoped it would never come. Her eyes met his. Tell me, Terran, do your people know how to fight? He hesitated. We have forgotten. The galaxy has been at peace for centuries. Mira nodded slowly. Then you must remember. Peace is a gift, but it must be guarded. The machines will not stop. By the next day, the Council of Worlds had received their warning, but instead of action, they responded with disbelief. The message from the Council's representative was brief. The reports of ancient machines are unconfirmed. The myth of the Dominion has no basis in modern science. Return to Alaris and submit all data for review. Sarath crushed the communicator in frustration. They don't believe us. Mira's expression did not change. They will. When it's too late. She turned to Terrain. How many systems are near this region? He pulled up a star map. At least 7. 2 with colonies, 1 with major shipyards. Mira pointed at one. That one, NetNarrator. That's where the first attack will come. The Dominion always starts by targeting power sources. Sarath frowned. How do you know? Her gaze hardened. Because I fought them before. 2 days later, her prediction came true. A transmission arrived from NetNarrator, chaotic, full of static and screams. Ships burning in orbit, stations going dark, and a single, cold signal repeating across the stars. Terran and Sarath stood frozen as they listened. Mira walked to the console and calmly opened the channel. The screen showed a vast black ship, mechanical and silent, its surface covered in glowing red lines. Ver Dominion unit active, Lyra translated automatically. Directive, consume, assimilate, erase. The message ended. Mira spoke softly. They never changed. Sarath turned to her. What do we do? Mira's eyes gleamed with determination. We fight. But with what? Terran asked. Your ship is old, half broken. She smiled faintly. Old doesn't mean weak. The Valiant was built for this. She turned toward the crew. Begin power restoration. Bring the reactor online. Load the defense systems. Terran stared in disbelief. You're going to fight an entire machine fleet with one ship? Mira placed a hand on the old control panel. Not just a ship. A symbol. Her voice grew stronger. If we stand, others will follow. And if we fall, then at least the galaxy will remember that humans did not vanish. They returned when the stars needed them most. The crew worked day and night. The hum of energy filled the air again as the fusion core of the Valiant roared to life. Old weapon systems reactivated. Shields shimmered around the hull like blue fire. For the first time in 10,000 years, a human warship prepared for battle. Terran stood beside Mira, watching the screens. I never thought I'd see this, he whispered. She smiled softly. Neither did I. But legends are only waiting to wake up. Outside, the void trembled. The Ver Dominion's ships began to appear, black as night, cold as death. Mira raised her hand, her voice clear and commanding. All systems ready. Let's show them the fire that built the stars. As the first beam of light shot from the Valiant's cannons, the dead sector of space came alive again. The myth of humanity had risen, and the galaxy would never forget it. The space around the forgotten system of Solgrave glowed faintly as the ancient ship UNES Valiant prepared for battle. Its hull, scarred and worn by ages of silence, shone again with lines of blue light. Power pulsed through its old circuits, awakening systems that had slept for 10,000 years. Captain Mira Solon stood at the center of the command bridge, calm and focused. The crew of explorers, Terran Val, Commander Sarath Vaughn, and others watched in awe as the ship came alive under her command. The air vibrated with energy and the deep hum of the reactor filled the decks like a heartbeat. Status report, Mira ordered. Shields at 80%, Sarath replied. Weapons recharged. Engine stable. Terran checked his screen. Dominion fleet closing in. Estimated time to contact 20 minutes. Mira nodded. Good, that gives us time to remember who we are. The room fell silent. Every eye turned toward her. 10,000 years ago, she said, humanity stood against this same enemy. We lost our worlds, our cities, our skies, but we did not lose our will. That's why this ship still flies. It was built by hands that refused to give up. She looked out the viewport where distant lights moved closer. Those machines believe life is weakness. They will learn again that the human spirit cannot be erased. The crew straightened. Even the non-humans among them felt something stir in their hearts. A strange burning pride. Minutes later, the first enemy ships appeared on the screen. They were dark, silent, and cold, massive shapes of black metal that moved like shadows through the void. Their energy signatures pulsed with crimson light. Lyra, the AI, spoke quietly. Dominion fleet detected 6 capital vessels, 12 escorts, numerous drones. Sarath whistled softly. We're outnumbered 100 to 1. Mira's voice was calm. That's better odds than last time. Her hands moved across the control panel with precision. Activate point defenses. Target lead ship. Prepare to fire on my mark. The Valiant's old cannons rotated into position. Energy built in their cores and blue light began to burn brighter than the stars around them. Terran's heart pounded as the first volley left the Valiant. Beams of light crossed the darkness, striking the nearest Dominion cruiser. The impact was enormous. Metal cracked and flame burst across its surface. The alien ship twisted and broke apart. The crew cheered. For a moment, the impossible seemed possible. But the celebration was short. The other Dominion ships opened fire. Red lances of energy sliced through the dark, hitting the Valiant's shields with blinding flashes. Shields at 60%. Sarath shouted, "Compensate," Mira commanded. "Divert power from secondary systems." "Keep firing!" The ship shook violently. Sparks flew from the ceiling. Panels flickered. But Mira stood firm, her eyes locked on the enemy. Terran could hardly believe what he saw. A single, ancient ship fighting an entire fleet and holding its ground. The battle raged for hours. Space burned with light and thunder. The Dominion ships moved with cold precision, while Mira fought with human instinct and courage. She predicted their moves before they made them, outsmarting them again and again. When one of the enemy ships tried to flank them, Mira shouted, "Rotate starboard! Fire pulse cannons!" The explosion that followed tore the Dominion ship apart. Terran watched in awe. "How do you do that? How do you always know where they'll move?" Mira gave a faint smile. "Machines follow logic. Humans follow the heart. That's something they'll never understand." But the damage was adding up. The Valiant's shields began to weaken and the hull trembled under the constant strikes. "Shields down to 30%, Sarath warned. "We can't take much more." Mira clenched her jaw. "Then we hit them harder." She pressed a series of commands. "Charging Nova Core. Prepare to release on my mark." Terran's eyes widened. "Nova Core? That's a weapon built to end wars," she said. It was never used. Until now. The lights on the bridge dimmed as all energy was drawn into the main cannon. The ship's frame groaned, metal straining from the power building inside. Lyra's voice echoed calmly. "Warning, energy output exceeding safe levels." Mira didn't flinch. "I know." The Dominion fleet noticed the energy surge and began to retreat slightly, but it was too late. "Fire!" Mira shouted. A beam of pure light burst from the front of the Valiant, so bright it turned the void white. It tore through space, hitting the center of the enemy formation. The explosion that followed was like a small sun igniting. The shockwave rippled across the sector, scattering debris and disabling every nearby Dominion drone. When the light faded, half the enemy fleet was gone. The crew stared in stunned silence. Even Sarath, usually calm, was speechless. Terran whispered, "She destroyed them." "With one shot." Mira leaned against the console, breathing heavily. That it was for Earth, but the victory came at a cost. The ship's power systems were failing. Reactor unstable. Lyra warned. "We must reroute or risk overload." Mira turned to Sarath. "Divert power to shields and engines. We're not done yet." Outside, the remaining Dominion ships regrouped. Though damaged, they continued advancing, relentless, without fear, without pause. Terran watched the sensors. "They're coming again. Hundreds more." Mira's eyes darkened. "Then we make them remember." Far away in the Council systems, the message from NetNarrator finally reached the leaders of the galaxy. The reports were unbelievable. Footage of a single human warship standing alone against a Dominion fleet. Across dozens of worlds, people gathered in front of holoscreens, watching the impossible. The humans, those mythical beings, were real and they were fighting again. Old stories spread like wildfire. Children whispered about the skyburners. Soldiers saluted the old flag of Earth. And for the first time in ages, the galaxy felt something it had forgotten. Hope. Back at Sol Grave, the battle reached its breaking point. The Valiant spun through debris, firing everything it had left. Each blast lit up the dark, striking another Dominion ship from the stars. But the damage was too great. The hull was cracking, fire spreading through the lower decks. Sarath shouted, "We're losing containment." Terran turned to Mira. "We have to retreat. There's nothing left." She looked at him, her expression soft but unyielding. "If we run, they will follow. If we fall here, others will rise." She raised her voice. "All crew prepare for final charge." Terran stared at her.
Final?
Before he could finish, the ship's communication system activated. Mira was broadcasting to every nearby system, her voice strong and clear. "This is Captain Mira Solon of the United Nations expeditionary ship Valiant. To all who can hear me, humanity stands again. We fight not for survival, but for every free world that believes in light. Join us or remember us." Her words echoed across the stars. Even as the Dominion closed in, more ships began to appear on the scanners, vessels from other species responding to the call. Small fleets from nearby colonies, independent traders, even old pirate ships, all answering the signal. Commander Sarath's eyes widened. "They're coming! The galaxy is answering you." Mira smiled faintly. "Then we're not alone anymore." The combined fleet charged forward, their weapons blazing. For the first time in millennia, living beings of many races fought side by side, following a human's lead. Terran felt tears in his eyes as the Valiant surged ahead once more. The battle turned. The machines began to fall back, their precision broken by the chaos of courage. Lyra reported, "Dominion units retreating, signal strength decreasing." Mira let out a long breath. "Then the sky burns for us again." The crew cheered. Across the galaxy, hope was reborn. Hours later, silence returned to the Sol Grave. The Dominion ships were gone. The Valiant floated among the wreckage, its hull cracked, engines dying but still standing. Terran walked to Mira's side. "We did it." "You did it." She looked tired but proud. "No, we did it. And now they know humanity was never a myth." He smiled. "What happens now?" Mira gazed at the stars. "Now we rebuild. The machines will come again, and when they do, they'll find more than one ship waiting for them." The faint light of dawn spread across the ruined sector, shining on the old warship that had once been a tomb and was now a beacon. And somewhere, deep in the endless dark, more ancient signals began to stir. Other human ships, awakening from their long sleep. The legend was no longer a story. Humanity had returned. The stars were quiet again. After the great battle, space around the Sol Grave system looked like a field of silent ashes. Broken ships floated in the void, some belonging to the Dominion, some to the brave who had joined the fight. Yet in the middle of the wreckage, one ship still glowed with life, the UNES Valiant. Its engines were damaged, its shields gone, but its heart still beat. The human ship that had once been a relic of the past now stood as a living symbol of hope. Captain Mira Solon sat quietly in her command chair, staring out at the stars. Her uniform was torn, her face tired, but her eyes still burned with determination. "The ship's AI," Lyra spoke softly. "Repairs to main systems are 70% complete. Life support stable. External communication restored." Mira nodded. "Good. We'll need that signal soon." She turned to Terrain Val, who was carefully recording everything in his archive device. The alien historian had not stopped writing since the battle ended. "You're documenting all of this?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "Someone must. 1,000 years from now, I want others to know what happened here, how humanity returned when we needed them most." Mira gave a small laugh. "You make it sound like a legend." Terran looked up at her. "It already is." Across the galaxy, the news spread faster than light. Every world, every colony, every race was talking about the same thing. Humans. For centuries, they had been dismissed as myths, creatures from old data tales who had vanished after a great war. But now their ship had been seen, their captain had spoken, and their enemies had fallen. In marketplaces, children wore patches with the old human emblem, a blue circle with a white star. Soldiers painted the word Valiant on their armor, and in distant academies people studied old human writings, trying to understand what kind of species could rise again after 10,000 years of silence. The galaxy was changing, and the fire of humanity was spreading. Back aboard the Valiant, repairs continued. Engineers from many worlds had arrived to help rebuild. The hangar bays were filled with ships of every design, sleek Alarian fighters, bulky cargo vessels, and small repair drones from the world of Kareth. Commander Sarath Vaughn, who had once been skeptical of Mira's existence, now stood proudly beside her. "We've received messages from 12 worlds offering support. They want to form a defense network." Mira nodded slowly. "Then it begins again." "Again?" Tarayan asked. She looked out the viewport, her gaze distant. "Humanity once built an alliance, the United Worlds of Earth. It fell when the Dominion came. But now, with so many willing to stand together, maybe it can rise once more." Lyra's voice interrupted gently. "Captain, incoming transmission. Source unknown, but signal structure matches pre-Dominion human code." Everyone froze. Mira's eyes widened. "Human code?" "Put it through." The screen flickered, showing static and distorted light. Then a face appeared. A human face, older, tired but alive. "This is Admiral Elias Core of the sleeper ship New Dawn," the voice said weakly. "If anyone can hear this, humanity endures. We have awakened." Mira leaned forward. "Admiral Core, this is Captain Mira Solon, Earth Defense Fleet. You're not alone." For a moment the Admiral stared in disbelief. Then slowly a smile appeared on his face. "By the stars, you survived. Not just me," Mira said. "The galaxy knows humanity is back. The Dominion will come again, and we need every ship, every hand." Core nodded. "We'll join you." "There are more vaults hidden across the old colonies. Some are still in stasis. I'll send coordinates." The signal ended, leaving silence on the bridge. Sarath looked at Mira with awe. "There are more of you?" She nodded slowly. "Thousands, maybe more. The Phoenix Project worked." Tarayan frowned. "Phoenix Project?" "It was our final plan," she explained. "When the war was lost, Earth sent fleets into cryosleep across the stars. We knew we might not survive, but we wanted the galaxy to remember us when the time came. And that time," Tarayan said softly, "is now." Days passed. The coordinates from the New Dawn led the Valiant to the edge of a crimson nebula. There, hidden within drifting clouds of gas and dust, they found more ancient ships. Massive human carriers, battle cruisers, and colony arcs. Their hulls were covered in dust, their systems frozen in silence. Yet when Mira approached, the old codes came alive again. Lyra's voice grew warm. "Recognizing transponder signals. UNES Odyssey, UNE. S Horizon, UNES Victory." Mira's heart pounded. "Begin awakening sequence." Slowly, one by one, lights began to glow across the ships. Engines hummed faintly. Power returned. Cryopods opened. And soon, hundreds of humans stepped out into the cold air. Officers, engineers, doctors, and soldiers of the old fleet. They blinked against the light, looking around at the strange new faces who greeted them. Aliens who now called them heroes. For Tarayan, the sight was beyond belief. He had spent his life studying myths. Now he was living one. He recorded every detail. The humans' awakening, the mixture of languages, the old songs that echoed through the hangars as the ships powered on. He watched Mira speak to her people, her voice strong and full of pride. "We are the sons and daughters of Earth," she said. "Our world may be gone, but our spirit is not. We were forgotten, but we did not forget. We slept, and now we rise, to protect not only our kind, but every being who believes in freedom." Her words spread across the new alliance. Every ship, every crew member, human or not, felt the weight of her promise. The Phoenix Fleet, as they began to call it, was born, but peace did not come easily. The Dominion had retreated, not vanished. In the deep parts of the galaxy, their forges began to burn again. New machines were being built, stronger, faster, colder. One day Lyra brought grim news. "Captain, long-range scans detect movement near the Helion cluster. Dominion war signals confirmed." Sarath clenched his fists. "They're rebuilding." Mira nodded. "Then we strike before they're ready." Tarayan hesitated. "Are you sure, Captain?" "The fleet is still recovering." She turned to him. "If we wait, they'll destroy another world. We can't let history repeat." Her eyes shone with determination. "This time, we take the fight to them." The Phoenix Fleet gathered. Dozens of ships, old and new, formed around the Valiant. The engines of the resurrected human vessels glowed bright blue like stars reborn. Around them flew ships from Alaris, Kareth, and other worlds. For the first time in history, species that once distrusted each other now stood together, united under a human banner of hope. When the fleet entered the Helion cluster, the darkness exploded with light. The Dominion's war machines rose from the shadows, vast and countless, but this time the galaxy was ready. Mira stood on the bridge, her hands steady. All ships hold formation. Remember, machines can calculate, but they cannot feel. And that's why we will win. The battle began. The fight lasted for hours. The Valiant led the charge, its cannons blazing. The Odyssey and Victory fired their plasma lances, cutting through the Dominion's heavy cruisers. Swarms of drones tried to overwhelm the smaller ships, but the Ilarian fighters intercepted them, wings flashing with light. Terran worked beside the crew, helping to coordinate the chaos. He had never seen anything like it. This unity, this courage. At one moment, the Dominion unleashed a massive energy wave, threatening to destroy everything in its path. But Mira ordered all ships to channel their power into the Valiant's shield array. The combined energy created a blazing sphere of light that absorbed the attack. The shockwave that followed shattered the Dominion line. When the smoke cleared, the machines were gone. Their signal vanished into silence. Lyra spoke softly. Dominion presence neutralized. Sector secure. Mira closed her eyes, letting out a long breath. Then it's over. Later, as the fleet drifted among the stars, Terraean sat in his cabin writing his final report. He looked out at the endless dark, where the lights of human ships glowed like tiny suns. His voice trembled as he spoke into his recorder. They called humanity a myth, but myths are only forgotten truths. When the sky burned again, the truth returned with fire in its heart. He paused, smiling faintly. The galaxy will never forget them again. On the bridge, Mira stood alone, looking at the stars. Her people were alive, her allies safe, and for the first time in 10,000 years, peace felt possible. Sarath approached quietly. "Captain, where to next?" She smiled softly. "Everywhere. There are still colonies to find, friends to awaken, worlds to rebuild. The fire of Earth will light the stars once more." As the Valiant turned toward the horizon, the fleet followed, humans and aliens together, bound by the same dream. And somewhere in the endless distance, new dawns began to rise because humanity had returned, and they would never fade again.